Have you ever considered this question? If, during the Sino-Soviet negotiations back then, the Russians had stubbornly refused to offer the Su-27 and insisted only on selling the MiG-29, which they claimed was suitable for frontline combat, would the J-11, J-16, and even the J-15 carrier-based fighter we see today still dominate military news headlines? Let's rewind to the early 1990s. The Soviet Union had just collapsed, and Russia's economy was struggling. They desperately needed to exchange arms for foreign currency. The fighter Russia recommended to China was the MiG-29. In Russian eyes, this was a frontline fighter designed for rapid takeoff and close-range dogfighting. However, it had a significant weakness: limited range due to small internal fuel tanks and restricted fuel capacity, preventing long-distance operations. Russia was willing to sell this aircraft partly because it deemed it adequate for the role, and partly because it wouldn't fully expose its core technologies. Had the deal proceeded along these lines, China would have acquired not the heavy fighter later dubbed the flanker, but this limited range Swallow. Had the MiG-29 been introduced then, the subsequent development path would have diverged entirely. Shenyang Aircraft Corporation would never have gained exposure to heavy fighter design principles, and the J-11 series would never have emerged. The MiG-29 platform itself has solid fundamentals. It's highly maneuverable, lightweight, and agile. However, its inherent size limits its potential for transformation into a heavy fighter, no matter how much it's upgraded. You may have heard of some countries modifying the MiG-29 into the MiG-35 by adding conformal fuel tanks and upgrading avionics, but its payload capacity and combat radius still can't match those of the Su-27 series. Had China pursued this path, its air force would have relied on a fleet of medium fighters, instead of the later heavy aircraft capable of carrying several tons of ordnance over thousands of kilometers. The engine choice had an even greater impact. The L-31F engine, originally developed for the Su-27, not only powered the J-11 but also solved the J-10's propulsion issues. The J-10 program spent a considerable period awaiting engine development. Without access to the L-31F, it would have relied on the then under development WP-15. This engine, reverse-engineered from the MiG-23, represented second-generation technology, falling short in thrust, fuel efficiency, and reliability. Equipping the J-10 with this engine would have significantly degraded its performance and further delayed the project timeline. A delayed J-10 would also impact the J-20's development pace, as much of the J-20's fly-by-wire flight control expertise was gained through J-10 experience. Falling behind at one stage makes catching up extremely difficult. The naval situation would also change. If only the MiG-29 were available, the carrier-based fighter choice would likely be the MiG-29K. Russia's own carriers once tested both the Su-33 and MiG-29K simultaneously, each with distinct advantages and disadvantages. The MiG-29K is lighter and more maneuverable on deck, but its payload capacity and combat radius are in a completely different league compared to the J-15. The J-15, derived from the Su-27, has a robust foundation, enabling it to carry heavier payloads and fly farther. Replacing it with the MiG-29K would significantly weaken the carrier strike group's operational reach in distant waters. As the Chinese Navy increasingly operates in remote seas, carrier strike groups require aircraft with extended range. Limited aircraft range restricts the entire formation's operational envelope. The inability to acquire Su-27s also meant China couldn't obtain Su-30 MKKs. This multi-role fighter excels in both ground and maritime attacks, and later served as the foundation for China's development of the J-16. The J-16 is now positioned as a heavy multi-role fighter, boasting a large weapons payload, extended range, and the capability to carry various precision-guided munitions. Without the Su-30 MKK as a foundation, the J-16 would never have emerged. Consequently, ground and maritime strike missions would have to be carried out by other aircraft. The most likely candidate to shoulder this role is the Flying Leopard fighter bomber. As a domestically developed aircraft with an early project initiation, if all long-range strike duties were assigned to it, its upgrade pace would accelerate. You may have heard rumors about the J-7B fighter bomber variant. If genuinely required, it could transition into mass production to penetrate denser air defense networks. Even a stealth version of the Flying Leopard might be prioritized. The J-8 faced a similar predicament. This high-altitude, high-speed fighter found itself in an awkward position after the arrival of the Su-27, as its range, payload capacity, and maneuverability all fell short of the new heavy fighter. However, had the Su-27 not been introduced, the J-8 would have had to continue shouldering the main burden. Shenyang Aircraft Corporation might have desperately squeezed every last drop of potential from the J-8 developing variants with conformal fuel tanks, upgrading radars, or even experimenting with stealthy modifications to create a stealth-enhanced variant. While feasible, these approaches would have been costly with limited returns, essentially squeezing the last drops of value from an aging platform. The most pivotal shift would have been in the development path for stealth fighters. Without the Su-27, China's aviation industry would have remained anchored in medium-sized aircraft. The J-10 program would have faced significant setbacks, while the Flying Leopard and J-8 would have been pushed forward under immense pressure. Had the military then demanded a stealth fighter capable of countering the F-22, Shenyang Aircraft Corporation, drawing on its MiG-29 experience, might have proposed a medium stealth fighter, akin to the later FC-31 approach. Had this aircraft matured before the J-20, China's first stealth fighter would not have been the current long-legged heavyweight, but a medium-sized variant. A medium fighter could still achieve stealth and combat capability, but its limited internal fuel capacity and smaller weapons bays would severely restrict its endurance and strike capability during missions across China's vast territory, especially in distant theaters like the South China Sea or the Western Pacific, making it incomparable to the J-20. This limitation could constrain the Air Force's strategic positioning. Another often overlooked factor is the depth of technological reserves. Following the introduction of the Su-27, China acquired not only the aircraft but also the production line and technical documentation. During assembly and manufacturing, Shenyang Aircraft Corporation gained comprehensive insights into the design philosophy, structural techniques, and material applications of heavy fighters. This process spanned over a decade, cultivating a large cohort of engineers and skilled technicians. These talents later developed not only the J-11B but also the J-15 and J-16. The J-11B, equipped with domestically produced radar and avionics, saw a significant performance boost over the original Su-27SK. The J-15, developed from the T-10K3 prototype and incorporating lessons from the J-11, became China's first carrier-based fighter. The J-16 further maximized multi-role capabilities, achieving high standards in payload capacity, radar performance, and electronic warfare. The entire technological foundation for this system traces back to the Su-27. The same applies to engines. Following the introduction of the L-31F, China developed the Taihang engine, the WS-10, based on its architecture. The Taihang's development spanned over a decade, overcoming dozens of critical technological hurdles to achieve full domestic production. Today, the J-11B, J-16, and J-20 all utilize domestically produced engines, completely eliminating reliance on imports. Had China acquired the RD-33 engines from the MiG-29, instead, its subsequent domestic development path would have focused on medium-sized engines. Different thrust levels support different aircraft platforms. Heavy stealth fighters like the J-20 require high-thrust engines. If China's domestic engine development had started from the RD-33 baseline, solving the J-20's powerplant challenges would have been far more difficult. Overall, the Su-27 deal delivered more than just dozens of aircraft. It provided a complete development path for heavy fighters, a robust engine technology foundation, and a full suite of design, manufacturing, and modification capabilities. Without it, China's aviation industry would still have progressed, but the journey would have been far more arduous, and its arsenal significantly lighter. The current mainstay might instead be a domestically produced version of the MiG-29, supplemented by several hundred JF-17 Thunder fighters. The carrier-based fighter would be the MiG-29K, and the stealth fighter would be a medium-sized aircraft developed first. While these assets would be serviceable, they pale in comparison to the current air power, a force featuring heavy fighters, long-range strike capabilities, and a tiered fleet of stealth aircraft. History often unfolds this way. A single critical choice can steer an entire trajectory down divergent paths.